Hello folks. Well, I was up in court again today.
Stand up straight, boy. Up, up.
And this time I actually appeared before the judge. Standing in the box. Is that what they call it? I can't remember what they call it. I don't remember. Anyway, I was told that for refusing to wear a mask by the judge, I was guilty of selfishness, and that these measures, these mandates, I will call them diktats, were for everyone's good, everyone's protection. Well, we've heard these reasons many times, but does that make them true? We've all heard, well, you might know what the Nazis, was it Goebbels, that said, if you repeat a lie often enough, people will, and loud enough, people will believe it. It's like that. It is like that. I'm not calling anybody Nazis. I'm just saying it's like that. It's similar. You know, the effects are exactly the same, regardless of the motivation of people who choose to say these things. The effect is the same. It's a form of brainwashing, especially when there's morality tied to it, to the reasoning. People will accept it much more readily. They won't bother thinking too much about whether it is actually righteous or not. They tend not to, because people, as I've seen, as I've observed, I believe I've observed this. Now, this has been a great experiment. This whole thing has been a wonderful experiment in this regard, that it's been very revealing as to how human nature works. Herd mentality, you might call it, whereby people will tend to go with the flow, just so that their life will be easier. They're not actually being 100% honest about things. They could be much more honest, because principles ought to be regarded. Principles matter. Well, people tend, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, they'll tend to go for the easy path. That's human nature. We'll go for the easy path, the path of least resistance or trouble. Now, sentence was deferred for 6 months, which means I have to be a good boy for the next 6 months until I'm summoned to appear before the judge again. Hopefully, I'll get off scot-free. Hopefully, I'll be let off completely. That nothing whatsoever will happen to me. That would be the reasonable course of action, I believe. Simply because there's nothing wrong with going shopping and being left to do your shopping unmolested. Nobody likes being harassed. There's actually a law against it. It's illegal in Scotland, for instance, to harass anybody over their beliefs. Well, this is my belief. I believe this is very wrong. I believe it's my Christian duty to not harass others, to treat others with respect, and to expect the same from others. And simply it's my duty to make a witness in that way. Make a witness with regard to that, to show that publicly, in a way that people can recognize that I'm making a passive protest against the thing. Passive disobedience. You may have heard of Lord Hategood. Lord Hategood was the judge in Pilgrim's Progress. Christian and faithful came to a town called Vanity Fair, and the people of that town wanted them to buy their goods, and Christian and faithful refused to buy their goods, so they were summoned before Lord Hategood, who was a bad judge, in my view.
They wouldn't buy anything from us!
So I heard. But what is it you want to buy? The truth.
You are a traitor and heretic! You've heard the honest testimony of these witnesses?
May I say a few words in my defense?
I should kill you where you stand. Since we want to prove that we are kind-hearted, we'll listen to what you have to say. You have sealed your fate with your own words. Burn them.
And every time I have to appear, or I contemplate the possibility of appearing before any kind of judge in court, in a court setting, Lord Hategood always comes before my mind, because I have appeared before judges on various occasions as a witness and things. And some judges have been good and others have been bad.
Since I've been found guilty of a crime I did not commit, at least I did not think was a crime when I was committing it, may I throw myself upon the mercy of the court, Your Honour? My God, may I say, sir, I've been an orphan since the age of 4.
That's enough.
The unhappiness and pain have been my lot since I can't remember when.
Enough.
I've searched the country in vain.
Enough.
And I'm only 15, sir.
It is the sentence of this court that you be taken from this court to prison, where you will stay for 2 years.
Fair enough. It was all I expected, you stupid old fart.
Good and not good. Let's just put it like that. And it's a lottery. It's completely out of your hands. I mean, usually you have no idea who the judge is going to be, and you don't even know them anyway. But anyway, so it was like that today. I was hoping I wasn't going to get Lord Hategood. Anyway, why did Musk buy Twitter? Why did Musk buy Twitter? He bought Twitter for the same reason that I'm appearing in court, basically for an unreasonable exercise of authority. The authority of Twitter, for instance, cancelling people, shutting down accounts just because they disagreed, just because the people disagreed with the views that of Twitter. So Elon Musk bought Twitter, which is great, because he's an advocate for free speech. Now he must buy Facebook and YouTube, and hopefully Google too, and anything else, any of these other terrible companies that trample over people's freedoms verbally, just closing them down. I mean, look at the effect Twitter had on the US election. Now, that was criminal, simply criminal. Withholding information, suppressing information, and they've got the brass neck to spout on about disinformation and misinformation in their horribly self-righteous way. So they shut down Trump, for instance, Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump because he's of a different view to them, and he's in fact the standard bearer for basically for freedom of speech. I mean, whatever people say about his mannerisms, the way he sometimes speaks or whatever, that's beside the point. It's just the way he is. Are we not allowed to be individuals? Can we not appreciate one another's idiosyncrasies? Can we not appreciate one another and possibly even overlook our drawbacks? The things we may not particularly adore in one another. Anyway, I know I have the Magna Carta on my side, and that makes me feel good. Also the US Constitution and Bill of Rights. Why did America fight the War of Independence? They fought it for the same reasons again, though things were a bit more serious in one sense, in that in those days people died for their principles, you know, more than they do today, for religious principles anyway. But if you think back, I mean, the Boston Tea Party, so that occurred because people were so frustrated with King George III. He was a bad king. So they chucked all the tea into the sea off the boats as a protest to make a point to the king, who was a very unreasonable man, and kept making demands, unreasonable demands, of the colonists in America, who were under British rule at that time, of course. And of course they fought the war against the tyrant. You can go as far as to say the tyrant. Yes, I think that's reasonable enough to say. And they won the war. Now that war was fought for freedom, truly for freedom. And it was a great experiment, and it's been a great experiment in the US ever since. And we had Charles I in this country, who had his head cut off because he was so unreasonable. Now these are examples of government overreach, and how it's so easy for governments to go too far in their self-righteousness, and they're always blind. Human beings are always blind. We're always blind to our own problems. If we're going to go down that path, I mean, look at communist China again. Look how blind they are to their own drawbacks, their own hypocrisies and the like. So we have to be aware. We must be aware ourselves. We must be, there's a Christian principle. It's called self-examination. We must examine ourselves. We must constantly be examining ourselves all the time. Examine yourself first before you start pointing fingers. And if we all did that, the world would be a far better place.